jump in motocross news.
Hello everyone and welcome to another GateDrop.com podcast. This week we're going to review the Loket MXGP and have a quick look at Washougal from the AMA race. And I welcome on board Andy McKinstry. Andy, how you doing?
How's it going? You're probably disappointed you've downgraded a guest, but you'll have to have me this week. Sorry about that.
10 world titles, 101 GP wins to no world titles, no British titles, no Ulster titles, not even a Grade C pole position, nothing. But anyway, well,
sorry,
your insight still very much valued. We'll start with Loket, and a nice track. I really like this track, up and down, pretty slick, a lot of off cambers, gives the riders something quite different that they aren't always used to in GP motocross. But the big talking point, I think, between Prado and Gasjer, probably Tim Gasjer. Everything was looking good. Second in the first one, almost got Prado, didn't quite get him. And then the second moto, fourth place, he was searching hard for a way past Jeremy Sewer. And the back wheel just all of a sudden escaped to the left on him, and down he went. Big crash. He did come back to get some points somehow. But I think that was the moment that this championships got blown wide open, in a sense, that Caroli Prado's now very much back in it, and a lot of hope for a lot of other riders.
Yeah, well, last week we were saying Gasjer was the one that wasn't crashing this year, and that all changed at the weekend. I have to say, I watched qualifying, and even during qualifying, he was a bit on the edge, I thought, compared to the first four rounds where he was actually smooth and looked in control. You could see that this was the week maybe a crash is going to come for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but he was making quite a lot of mistakes in qualifying. And then, okay, actually the first moto he rode well and got the second, but I think he was pushing the limits in that second moto a wee bit. And wow, that was a nasty crash, like, to get up from that. Quite lucky. He was like a rag doll being thrown off the bike, but somehow after a couple of rolls landed on his feet. But yeah, he was quite lucky to get up from that one, and then being able to get points that could be very vital towards the end of the season.
Yeah, 6 points I believe he got in that one, and it would have been down to the single figures if he hadn't kept charging there. So I think that's testament to Tim's determination and never give in mentality. He knows he has Caroli, now Prado, fever breathing down his neck, and every point could count at the end of this championship.
Yeah, I feel like obviously you never want to see anyone crash or anything like that, but in terms of the championship, that's exactly what it needed. And especially going into SAN now, with Gasjer only having 11 points gap over Tony Caroli with 2 SAN races. You know, Gasjer can't really be conservative in the SAN now. He needs to push, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And it could be very exciting at Lommel and then Latvia. It's all set up for good close racing, but I feel like the 11 points gap is probably fair on reflection, because Caroli's DNF unfortunately meant no points in Russia. So, and also it's tightening up. Prado's only 17 back and Fever's only 20 points back now. I feel like that's a little bit more fair, because they've all had their mistakes and now Gasjer's made his. So it's go time in terms of the championship.
And only 51 points back is Jeffrey Herlings. Before the race, he mentioned he probably, very unlikely, would be racing Lommel due to his shoulder blade fracture being worse than the first thought. But with Tim's crash and the doors still slightly ajar for this championship, if he misses Lommel, it's pretty much definite no-go, barring some sort of miracle. But if he can ride Lommel somehow and get some points, especially with the sand, obviously he's amazing there, that could keep his championship alive. So is this giving him a wee bit of extra, maybe a wee bit of stress that he might have to risk something this weekend to try and stay in this, keep his 5th world championship title alive?
Well, considering he's 0 points in the last 3 motos, I think it is, and he didn't even have the red plate before the injury, to only be 51 points behind. I think after seeing Gasjer have that big crash, I think if the doctor says this week he can ride, I think he'll have to have a go at it, because we all know if he doesn't ride Lommel, it's good night in terms of the championship. But if he can ride Lommel, push through the pain, and that man's pretty good at pushing through the pain, anything's possible. So it'll be interesting to see what decisions made there, but I feel like he'll take the risk now after the way Sunday went. I think if Gasjer had won that, it would have been, he wouldn't have even took the risk, but there's something there now possibly if he can get through it and get points on the board.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be on his mind. And Herlings, as everyone says, has a very high pain threshold, and he's a very tough guy, and he wants to win so badly that I think he'll definitely consider it. And if he doesn't ride, it's pretty much impossible for him to ride. That'll definitely be something to keep an eye on this week, just to see if Herlings will end up showing up at Lommel to try and keep his 5th World Championship aspirations alive. And Herlings, if he can ride in Lommel, you definitely can't count him out of this championship, because once he hits form and in the position he is, he can't really afford to be consistent anyway. He's just going to have to bring out the A game, and his A game is generally better than everyone else's. So it could be a very intense next few rounds of the championship if Herling can ride Lommel and keep the points tight.
Yeah, I hope for his sake he can, after what happened with the whole shot device not popping out and then getting landed on. Completely just bad luck. So I hope for his sake he can ride Lommel and he at least has a chance of the championship. It would be very, very hard to take if that's the championship contention over. So fingers crossed. He deserves one bit of luck. So hopefully the doctor says he can ride and he goes for it. Fingers crossed.
Monticelli hit the gate first moto in Loket. How much was Jeffrey Herlings wishing he'd hit the gate last week in Oz? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's how we do say so. Although I think they've cleared the air. I think Herlings, after a bit of reflection, just knew it was a racing accident. So it's good to see them put that behind them and move forward.
Yeah, we'll talk about even Monticelli in a few minutes. He was actually riding very, very well. But I think we need to go to Jorge Prado now. First win of the year. With what happened to Tim Gasjer, he couldn't have timed it any better. He's now 17 points behind in the World Championship chase. Prado rode really well the first moto. It was a wee bit like the week before in Oz, but this time he was able to hold on. He had a lot of pressure, but he didn't tire in the last 5 minutes as much. Kept his lines. Very obviously a difficult track to pass and Loket, and Prado made all the right moves at all the right times to keep Tim Gasjer behind him. Had the pace when he needed it to stop Gasjer really trying to get a wheel in there or even making contact or anything. So Prado did everything he needed to the first moto. Second moto, he did say again he got tired, so we still have maybe that bit of an issue of his fitness or physical strength riding a 450 at this intensity this season. But third place was enough for the overall and a big boost for Jorge Prado. He seemed to be just missing something in the first few rounds. It'll be very interesting to see what this does for his confidence and what this does for his momentum, because everything in that one day, he's got right back into the championship chase. He's won his first Grand Prix, and we all know he's very good in the sand, and it's Belgium and Latvia next. So Jorge Prado's really coming on strong here at the perfect time.
Yeah, we've been crying out for him to put two good motos together, and the first time he does it this season, he's on top of the box, so not bad. Welcome to 2021 season, Jorge Prado. Out of all the title challengers, you would probably say Prado's the one that's not shown his potential so far this year, up until Loket, of course. So only to be 17 points off the championship red plate with Lommel and Latvia coming up. Oh, he could be a danger now. I can't count him out of this title fight, because when he's a sort of rider that he should continue to get better. And as I mentioned, he's probably the one that's most off his potential. So if it all starts to click into place, he could be a handful. And he's very, very nice to watch. What a technique. Very neat on the bike. Never looks on the edge or anything. So it could be exciting as this season develops.
Yeah, and he got both hole shots as well. Even his starts although he has had some hole shots and some good starts, they haven't been maybe quite as consistent as normal. Usually it's a shock if he doesn't hole shot. This season so far it's been maybe a 50-50. Is he going to hole shot or not? So starts are back. He's got a win now, and everything looks like it's trending in the right direction. And if you're the rest of his rivals, you don't want Prado starting to reel off hole shot after hole shot, especially with the position he's in now in the championship. He's going to have to be taken very seriously by Tim Gasjer and also Caruli, his young teammate, not far behind in the points now, just 6 back.
Yeah, I think the one thing that helped them for the good starts this weekend was getting that pole position. I think that really helped them, and that probably helped his confidence as well. So, and after he won, you could tell that was maybe the monkey off his back this season that he was looking for. So it'd be very, very interesting now to see if he can keep the ball rolling. You can't rule him out of another couple of GP wins coming up here. the onus is kind of back on Tim Gasjer now, and because we're going to sand, and even though Gasjer's very, very good in the sand, you have to say the next two GPs, the conditions will favour Prado and Caroli. So it's going to be very, very exciting. I can't wait.
I think this is a big test for Tim Gasjer now. Obviously, he's a world champion. He knows how to deal with challenges and pressure. But in this particular championship, after that crash, Belgium and Latvia coming next, Caroli and Prado winning motos, winning GPs, and they're obviously can't wait to get to Lommel because that's their best track maybe in the whole championship. Gasjer's gonna have to go really hard to try and keep this championship lead actually over the next two GPs.
Yeah, Lommel especially. I know he's won there the last couple of years, last year anyway. But you know, the way Caroli and Prado, their speed and the way they ride the sand is a completely different technique. And the way Gasjer rides the sand, I think he's going to have to be on the limit again. So it's going to be very, very interesting. He was on the limit there in that second moto at Loket, and it resulted in a crash. I think he needs to maybe go back to the way he was riding the first 4 rounds. Just go out there, try and have fun, not think about the championship pressure, and see how it goes. But you know, if Caroli and Prado are ahead of him, he's going to have to really probably push really hard to try and beat them guys. So it's going to be exciting to watch, and it's also going to be good to see the different styles in the deep, gnarly sand track of Lommel.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing actually. Gasjer has never won at Loket, which was a track you would think would be perfect for him. He has won at Lommel, but this year, with the circumstances of the championship, I don't think you can put Tim Gasjer as favourite for Lommel. So as I said, his ability on the sand can't be questioned now, especially after last year. But can he run at the level of a rejuvenated Caroli and a Jorge Prado? And as we talked about, will Jeffrey Herlings be back? Can he deal with the pain? If he can, we all know his speed in the sand. Roman Fever is actually pretty good in the sand as well. And then you've Glenn Coldenhoff, always turns it on in the sand. So guys, there's a lot of guys maybe feeling that this is their time to seize upon a weakness in quotation marks for Tim Gasjer. And they're going to have to do it to put the pressure on. But Gasjer's going to have to try and come back and show a lot of resilience in Lommel and also Latvia.
Exactly that. But, you know, I think if Gasjer gets a podium, that's fine. I think he's done his job. You know, I know these next 2 rounds are sand races, and if he does lose the red plate, you know, it's not a complete disaster. There's still going to be a lot of hard pack coming up. So as long as he can position himself nicely and around the championship after those, he doesn't need to panic too much. He just needs to keep riding the way he did at the first 4 rounds, and you still have to think that he's probably still the favourite for this championship because of his consistency. He just needs to avoid the sort of crashing that he done on Loket there in Moto 2. If he does that, he's still going to be very hard to beat. And, you know, it's not going to come down to just Lommel or Latvia. He just needs to do enough there to position himself nicely, and he should be okay. But the question is, if Caroli and Prado are ahead of him, how hard does he push to try and beat them? Or does he take it smart? It will be interesting.
Tony Caroli, talking about consistency, he's actually been inconsistent in the last 4 motos. He's had a poor first moto in Aus and in the Czech Republic, Loket, and then come back with a vengeance to win the second motos at both events. Again, in Czech Republic, Caroli didn't get the start he wanted, said he couldn't get into his rhythm, wasn't feeling amazing out there in the first moto. Even in qualifying, he didn't look to have that usual spark at Loket, but the second moto, something did spark, and he took second out of the gate. An early aggressive move on Prado by turn 2 showed his intent and probably his anger level after the first moto. And from there, it was classic Caroli when he controlled the race, didn't ride beyond what he needed to. He had a small gap for basically the entire race. He's been able to take advantage of Tim Gasjer. And I think after what happened with Caroli in Russia, he probably deserved that wee bit of luck. And now he's very much in this World Championship to get his 10th title. He's got the speed. He's now somehow at 35 years old improved his hard pack ability, and Caroli has to be taken very, very seriously now. I think he's got the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, he just needs to sort those first motos out at the moment. Like you said, it's sort of been not the greatest first motos, and then rebounding back with a win. Yeah, I agree with you. Loket in qualifying, he was making a lot of small mistakes. He didn't look too comfortable. Again, in the first moto, he didn't look too comfortable at a track that he says isn't one of his favourites. So to end the weekend like that with a moto win and a rebound back in style, really, again, yeah, you could say the same in us. In us, the first moto and a half, you were wanting more from him, and then he delivered right at the end. So he's been able to save his weekends, but he needs to show that same sort of intensity in the first motos moving on. I think in Lommel, he'll definitely not struggle with that because this is probably his best track on the calendar. So it's going to be exciting to see him there at a track that he's always riding and knows very well.
Yeah, I think it's time for Crowley to really assert his authority now coming into Lommel. The next couple of rounds will really show. I think he's planning to show what he has under the hood, that extra bit of speed, and to really probably try to get into Gasjer's head that he's for real and he can take control of this championship and try and lead it the rest of the way. Romain Febvre, it's a wee bit like deja vu for Romain Febvre. What could have been, he's bound to be very frustrated. He's still just 20 points behind Tim Gasjer. But a good first moto, third place. He was a wee bit off the pace of the front two. He didn't get going with them early. Second race, terrible start. He rode actually really well on a track that's tough to pass to get back into the top 10. Then went down again, finished 10th, and he only gained, I think, 3 points in Tim Gasjer overall. Better than nothing, but a case of what should have been yet again for Romain Febvre, and his frustration level, you feel each weekend is just getting higher and higher.
Yeah, I feel like out of all the title contenders, Febvre will have the most regrets so far this season. But I mean, it's 20 points behind. If he hadn't dumped it down the track as many times as he has, you could argue he could be the one that has the red plate. I think speed certainly isn't the issue. Just needs to calm it down a wee bit and play it smart. But it's easier said than done. These guys are pushing the limits, but hopefully he can keep it in two wheels. And you still can't rule him out of this because speed isn't his issue. It's just sometimes he doesn't get the greatest starts, which hinders him. But this season, I feel like his starts are better. So that's that element, that side of it is a positive this season. If he can just keep it in two wheels and play it smart when he needs to, you still can't rule him out. You really can't because he is fast, and I feel like he's still underrated as well.
Yeah, it's just a wee bit surprising to see these. Obviously, everybody makes mistakes as motocross, especially at that level when you're on the edge, pushing the envelope against the best guys in the world. But Febvre's almost making the same type of mistake every week at the minute. It's obviously easy to say to stop doing that, but it obviously isn't easy to stop doing that, and it keeps happening. So for Febvre, he really just needs to stop these mistakes. But he's Lommel next. That's a track where mistakes can happen even easier. It'll be interesting to see over the next couple of rounds if he can just stop with the odd small crash or the odd bad start, because it looks like he has everything else in his armoury to go after this championship.
Yeah, and it's not like him. I can't really remember him being a crasher like this before. I mean, obviously he has some crashes, but never so many in such a short space of time. So I'm not sure why it's happening. I feel like maybe he's more on the edge this year because he's really motivated to battle for this championship, and he feels more comfortable in the Kawasaki this year. So maybe if he doesn't feel like he's on the edge because he feels so good with the bike, and then these tricky tracks are just catching him out every now and again because he's on the edge so much. But yeah, like you said, he has everything else covered. So if he can stop the crashes, you still can't underestimate him for this championship. He could be knocking on the door whilst he's not the firm favourite.
Yeah, I think Febvre, you just envision him out going home every weekend frustrated, saying what if. But he has to look at the positive still. He's somehow still only 20 points with the way things are going at the minute. Isn't very much behind Tim Gasjer. And it's probably Gasjer that has the most pressure coming into Lommel. So we'll have to keep an eye and see if Febvre can get the better of Gasjer, because even if Crowley and Prado are out front, it's still important for Gasjer, for example, to try and get that third or fourth place on the podium and nick a few points on Tim Gasjer. So there could be races within the race for the World Championship this weekend in Lommel. I'll have to give a mention to Jeremy Sear, his best weekend of the season so far. Fifth and a fantastic second in the second moto. It was nice to see Jeremy ride to his potential for the first time this season. He's had some physical issues to deal with, but this was the Jeremy Sear that we saw last year for most of the season. And it's really nice to see him back. He kept Crowley in his sights the whole way in that second moto. His starts and the intensity seemed seemed more like himself. So fantastic to have Jeremy Sear back approaching 100%, and it just adds another name and another fast rider into the mix at the front of this championship.
Yeah, well, before the start of the season, he tested positive for COVID-19, and it was touch and go for Russia. But obviously, everything was aligned so he could race. So he was quite lucky in that aspect with the dates of everything and when it happened. So at least he could ride the start of the season and just, battle. This is obviously the Jeremy Sear we all know, and it's nice to see him back performing at the Haas level. 5-2 for third overall. He'll be hoping now that can kickstart his season. It's obviously very, very competitive this season, so there'll probably be a lot of riders on the box, but he'll be hoping to be one of them on a consistent basis as he's done in the past. Might be a bit trickier this year, but if he can keep riding like that, then who knows, because he's obviously got talent and ability and speed, so it's definitely nice to see him back on the podium.
Yeah, and he actually isn't that far off in the championship. He's been, although he obviously hasn't been 100%, he's been consistent the first few rounds, so he's kept himself in it. He's only 43 points behind Tim Gasjer, and that's not insurmountable, although you would imagine he'd have to start getting some moto wins. But I think Sear has to be commended for not dropping his head, and for, even when things weren't going well, dealing with health issues at the start of the year, he kept plugging away and he didn't throw it away ever. He kept gathering those points, and right now it's playing into his advantage. That's another thing as well with Jorge Prado. He had COVID at the end of last year, and before he got COVID, his fitness wasn't really in doubt. This year it has been. So just in those last 5 minutes, he's talking about strength as well. I'm wondering if maybe he has some residue issues with COVID as well. You wouldn't know. Affects people in different ways, especially the long-term side of it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think with Prado, he does have a history of struggling with the heat, so I'll be intrigued to see once the hot weather goes away what he's like at the end of the motos. It could just be down to the heat, so it'll be an interesting one to see how that develops. Obviously, Lommel, he's probably going to be tired, but all the riders are tired at the end of Lommel. That's a tough 30-minute plus 2 motos, unless you're Jeffrey Herlings. He'll probably be the only one that comes in round to go for another moto, and even if he does race, he won't be 100% fit. So I think we'll all be tired after Lommel, so probably can't read too much into the physical side of things there. But once they get into like a normal hard pack track, it'd be interesting to see if he can last a bit longer and when it's not hot, so it'd be interesting.
I want to talk about Calvin Vallanderen. I thought he was absolutely fantastic at the weekend. A tremendous run from 23rd all the way through to 9th in the first moto. A track that, as we mentioned, isn't easy to pass on, but he was able to get the job done. Second moto, he was again in the top 10, and he had that pretty impressive crash. He saw the grass and just aimed for it, so he wouldn't get a hard landing. Slid down like he was on a slide, and that worked out quite well in terms of stopping injury, but it didn't work out well in terms of his overall result. But Vallanderen, his speed at Loket was very, very good, and he was probably one of the most impressive riders of the weekend for me.
Yeah, the best of the rest in terms of speed, you would probably say. I mean, to come from 23rd to 9th in MXGP is not easy to do. Everyone knows how stacked the class is, so that was a good first moto. And I think in the second moto, he seen Monticelli in 5th, and he knew if he could get Sean quickly, that 5th was definitely on the cards, but probably got a wee bit too excited, and that led to the crash, unfortunately. He's still chasing 2 top 10 motos in the same day, so hopefully he can do that soon, because he certainly has the speed for it. He'll probably be a wee bit frustrated with that crash in the second moto and the bike being too damaged to continue, but in terms of his speed, he'll be really happy, because that was the best weekend he's had so far this season in terms of speed he has. It's just a pity he hasn't got the top 10 overall to go with it.
Yeah, and I think in terms of where he was in MX2, he's starting to show the level that he probably should be in MXGP. He's a very, very good rider, and we talked a wee bit about it last week. He didn't get factory machinery. He was on a new team. They just moved to Yamaha, and he did start figuring out the pace last season. So he's with this team his second year. They know him, he knows them, and everything seems to be coming together well for him. And we're really starting to see the full potential of Calvin Vallanderen on the 450, and it's showing just why he was a factory HRC Honda rider in MX2, because Calvin's really, really starting to show his potential here, and he's got a lot of speed right now.
Yeah, and also don't forget that he was riding without an ACL last season. So at the end of the season, he actually had to go home to South Africa to get an operation. So he didn't actually have a full off season either. So that's why I wasn't expecting him to be, right up to speed at the start of the season. So, and probably why it hasn't been. But as the season keeps going further and further, he should improve. And I think that was the first weekend. That was the speed that we all know he can ride at. So hopefully that will kickstart his season and he can get this two top 10 motor results in the same weekend. If he can do that and then build from there, who knows, we might even see him in the top 5 if he can get good starts, but starts have also been an issue for him.
Even Monticelli, probably his best result, or at least ride in terms of his speed. This weekend he had a difficult Oss GP, as we all know, with Herlings, and then he ended up running over Jeremy Sear as well in the second race. Both obviously completely accidental. It was just a circumstantial thing, but probably not easy for him to mentally cope with. I'm sure a bit of slagging off on social media and everything that goes with that, with Jeffrey getting injured and everything. So he came back. It didn't start well, obviously, when he hit the gate in the first moto, but he came back, rode well to get to 14th from last. And the second moto, he was fantastic. But we've all known he has a lot of raw speed, even Monticelli. He hasn't been getting the results really to justify that this season so far. But in Loket, he got the start. He stayed on early. He didn't really make any mistakes. He took a 5th place, and it was a deserved 5th place. This was a legitimate position that reflected the speed Monticelli had, and probably a really needed big confidence booster for the Italian.
Yeah, Monticelli got this deal with KRT, and people like he only got it because of money, this, that, and the other. But the dude's actually fast as well. He's a fast rider, and he's a good. If a factory team doesn't want 2 guys that can win, he's actually not a bad choice to be a number 2 rider in a factory team. And he's proven it. Obviously not a great start to the season. I know he's been dealing with arm pump issues at the end of races too, but that can happen at the start of seasons. That was the Ivo Monticelli that we've seen in the past. I mean, he's ran in the top 10 in the past with JK Yamaha and on Gas, so we shouldn't be too surprised to see him in the top 10. But that second moto was very, very impressive. To come 5th and to beat a whole host of top riders, that should really help his confidence. And obviously he's not known for sand riding, so if he can just be consistent over the next few races, and then go to the hard pack tracks again, he'll be looking to get more top 5 results if it's possible, and he showed he can do it once, so why not do it again?
Yeah, and in terms of next year with Olsen, I think Fevre has a longer contract with Kawasaki, Monticelli, and Jacek. There's rides up for grabs there. You can probably fill us in on that in more detail potentially, but there's rides up for grabs. So there's guys are riding for their future, and it's starting now to try and impress teams.
Yeah, well, at the moment, I think Thomas Kier Olsen has a Husqvarna contract. So even though his MXoN Husqvarna team is likely to go to factory Kawasaki, TKO is probably going to go to Nestan Husqvarna, a team that he knows well because he rode for them in MX2. They're likely to run MX2 and MXGP next year. Monticelli, even though it didn't state it in the official press release when he signed with the team, I believe he does have actually a 2-year contract, so he should be Kawasaki next year. And then Fevre's contract actually runs out at the end of this year, but obviously Kawasaki are going to do what they can to extend that, because it'd be very foolish to let him go. So it's looking like it could be Monticelli and Fevre on the MXoN Kawasaki next year potentially, but obviously that's all still to be confirmed.
And Monticelli, is it the second year performance related? Is it an option if he does good this year, or is it a guaranteed?
I believe it is a guaranteed 2-year deal. A source told me through, and who spoke to his agent, that he has a 2-year deal at KRT. But then, of course, there could be a clause in the contract that because MXoN are going to take over Kawasaki, who knows? There could be clauses that way. But I do believe it was a 2-year deal, yes. So could be seeing him in green next year again. But who knows? MXoN might even want to run a 3rd rider. They've run 3 riders in MXGP before, so who knows? Maybe that would be a good option.
It'll be interesting to see how that reshuffle all plays out. You've potentially Fevre going there, potentially Monticelli, but under under different team management as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. If that can all gel as well, it seems to is in the KRT current setup, because Fevre seems very comfortable with that team.
Yeah, well, it's run by Frenchmen, so it'll be interesting to see what and he's obviously really comfortable there. He said coming into the season, he's never felt so good. So it'll be interesting to see him with a new team now. But, the bike and stuff shouldn't change too much. So it's just if the new people around him believe in him and want to keep him, I'm sure it'll not be too long before he's comfortable there too.
Jeremy Van Hoorbeek, not really a surprise, but I think he deserves credit yet again. 2 strong rides. He's always been good at this track. It really suits his style, his smooth throttle control. Top 10 overall, 9th and second one, 7th in the first one. He's got to be happy, and better have to be very, very happy this season with how Jeremy's riding.
Yeah, 7-9 for 8th overall is actually their best finish so far this season. Probably shouldn't be too surprised, because Loket is usually very good to Jeremy, and he's actually won there in the past. But even still, I feel like people forget that this is a new manufacturer this time. Last year, they didn't even have a bike. A lot of development work coming into winter. So to get an 8th overall in the MXGP is very, very impressive. So a round of applause to everyone involved with the SDM factory beta team.
I think we need to give a shout out too to Lorenzo Locurcio. Really good day. He hasn't had the easiest time in MXGP this season so far. He's just been in the back end, inside or outside of points, but a 12th in the first moto, backed up again in the second moto with the 17th. So points both motos. Really good day for Lorenzo Locurcio coming from the AMA. And this has to be a big incentive for him, and a confidence booster again, that he can get things going in the right direction. The best day of his short MXGP career.
Yeah, very, very impressive. He really impressed me in the first moto, actually. And of course, riding for a Czech team in the JD Gunax KTM team, it came at the best round as well. I'm sure they would have been over the moon with the 12th in MXGP and in front of their home fans. And to back that up with a very solid 17th, 14th overall, very, very good. And if he can build on this, he has to be happy with those sort of results in this competitive stack class. We'll see how he gets on at Lommel. I think that might be a bit of an eye-opener for him, but racing the AMA and stuff in the past, they don't have tracks like Lommel, so next weekend could be a difficult one for him.
Okay, moving on to MX2. Actually, before we go on to the MX2, Sean Simpson, he rode really well in the second moto. I'm not sure I was expecting that. I think you would have thought that would be more a performance Simpson would have it in the back pocket for Lommel, but he got the start. He caught onto the pace, and he kept the rhythm really well to get his first top 10 of the year. Pleased for Sean. Obviously, he's running his own team. Things aren't easy whenever you're doing that, but to get that reward, seventh place in the second moto for Sean Simpson, he deserves a lot of credit for that one. Yeah,
really, really good. Nice to see him in the top 10 again. After that big injury, he got at the practice track at Lommel last year. You were thinking, will we ever see Sean Simpson running the top 10 again? So it's great to see it only the 5th round this year to finish 7th in a moto and at a track it isn't really his forte. Very, very encouraging, and that should really give him a big boost heading into the Sand GPs now. Wouldn't be at all surprised if he can get 2 top 10 motos in Lommel now, because he'll be feeling really good after that. 11th overall. It's nice to see him back there, and a shout out to all the Brits really. I thought they all had moments of really good things this weekend. Watson obviously getting the good hole start, getting a good start, running right at the front for 10 minutes. He didn't look out of place. Probably once a few riders passed him, he lost his rhythm and a bit of focus, but that can happen. Next time he gets a good start, hopefully he can run the pace for a wee bit longer. And then Adam Sterry, of course, in the second moto, getting a 13th and actually battle with Watson, and he hasn't got a factory bike. So I think all 3 of them should give themselves a bit of a pat on the back for the weekend.
It was a good time to start producing performances, because as we know, the Motocross of Nations is starting to creep up on us. So if you want to be in that team, you're going to have to be showing good speed now, and especially these sand races coming up, but good confidence boosters for all the British riders. Moving across to MX2, Mario Guadagnini, I think you just have to stand up and applaud the Italian after a tough race in Oz. He's come back, won the first moto in style. Tom Vial, his teammate, right behind him, didn't seem to matter, made no mistakes, took the win. One mistake in the second moto dropped him from 4th to 5th, but it was still enough to win the overall. And I think Guadagnini because he's a rookie, you always have this doubt: is he experienced enough? Is he going to make the mistake under pressure? And also, it looked like the pressure maybe got to him. And again, we'll have a deep sand track in Lommel coming up, so it'll be another sort of question mark he's going to have to answer. But Guadagnini really, really impressed me with his ability to win again after a bad race. And he's very, very much in this championship fight. And I think everybody's going to have to take him really serious now, because he's producing speed consistently. And to get a fifth when you're even in the second moto, he probably wasn't riding as good as he was in the first one. He had a wee crash and still fifth. It shows when he's maybe not quite on his A game, he's still fast enough to get a top five. So Guadagnini, overall win, second GP win in 5 rounds as a rookie. This guy's turning into something pretty special.
Well, you have to applaud the Carleys. They've done it again, haven't they? Claudio and his son David, really, really good, spotting the potential in Guadagnini. But not only that, they've had a short time working together, only one off season, and already taking him to the next level. Really, really good. Obviously, the rider himself deserves a lot of credit too. Missing out in that MX250 championship last year, but coming into MX2, that hasn't hindered him whatsoever. 2 points off in the championship chase as a rookie, and he's won 2 GPs. Don't think anyone would have expected this, so bravo to the guy. Really, really good. And the Italians they'll be very happy seeing this sort of riding, and they could be strong at the Motocross of the Nations later in the season.
I have to wonder what Tom Vial is thinking. He rode really well to take second after that injury. It's great to see him back. But whenever he's running in second place, he was the world champion. He still is the world champion. He had a flawless round in Russia, and he was the main guy on the team. And I was thinking there, when he was pushing hard to catch Guadagnini, he's seeing his rookie teammate basically be in the position he should be in, challenging for a world title and winning races. He had no luck at all with the crash, Tom Vial. We would like Jeffrey Herlings, not his fault. It was a tough time for the Red Bull KTM TM squad on that side of the awning, to be honest. But I just wonder what Tom's thinking whenever he sees Guadagnini basically step up and take over Tom's role as team leader and World Championship contender. He's got to be very, very frustrated. And that's the second moto, more bad luck, first turn crash. And then you could probably say what you don't usually say about Tom Vial, a rash move up the inside of another rider that left them both on the deck. So Tom Vial showed he hasn't lost his speed, he hasn't lost his starts for the first moto. Second moto mistake, and you got to wonder how frustrated he is in his mind that he isn't the main guy now.
Well, I think after the first moto, he would have been over the moon, to tell you the truth. I mean, he only rode once coming into it for the first time in a month, and he came back and finished second. Don't think he would have been too bothered who won. I think he might have even been surprised to finish second, to be honest, and get it so comfortably as well. I was very, very impressed. You were thinking after the first moto, he's still in this championship chase. But then, yeah, the second moto is where the frustration will be, because he had done the hard work and it looked like he could get himself on the podium. Then the start crash, and then, yeah, for the crash he had after that was his own fault, in my opinion. So he'll be frustrated with the second moto, but I think he'll be happy with the speed. He'll just want to get more bike time now, and sooner rather than later be 100%. I think when he's 100%, he's going to be a hard man to stop.
Yeah, I think he's probably still the best rider in the class, but I think it's just, I still think seeing another, especially your teammate, your rookie teammate, winning again and being on a World Championship challenge can't really be easy to take. And in about a month, the whole scenario switched around for him. And I think he'll want to show that although he probably would win the World Championship now, he's over 100 points back, that he's actually the best guy in this class, and he's going to start wanting to win a lot of motos to hammer that point home.
Yeah, possibly, but I don't think he'll be too worried about that. If you start thinking about that, it'll affect his own performances. He just needs to focus on himself and get himself 100%. And then once he is, he'll remind everyone of the talent he is. I don't think he'll be too bothered that a fellow factory KTM rider's winning. At the end of the day, when he signed, he knew that they'll sign the top riders available anyway. So he knew what he was getting into signing the contract. So yeah, for him, it's just important to get 100% fit. The sand could be a difficult one, not having too much bike time, but once we get out of the sand and into some hard pack races, he should be 100% for those ones. Interesting if he can replicate what he was doing last year. I think him and Jago Gertz are the two that'll look to really starting, even though they're behind the championship chase, starting to dominate the GP victories.
Well, we'll move on from that argument and we'll talk about Maxime Renault, second overall, still in the championship lead. Good day for the Frenchman. I think he's kind of doing what everyone thought he would do. He's just good everywhere. He's consistent. He might have the odd issue here and there, but he hasn't had any disasters yet, and he's hanging in with the red plate. Probably his experience, you still think would maybe have the edge over Guadagnini, but Guadagnini's learning fast. However, Renault just keeps hammering in the results.
Yeah, Maxime was very, very impressive in the first moto. And I think if you have to look at both motos and pick who was the fastest rider this weekend, you probably have to say Maxime Renault was, to come from 19th to 5th. Very, very impressive. And then that second moto, a solid second. Didn't have anything for Benny Stant in that one, but the bigger picture is the red plate, and he's got it. He's kept it for another week, and he's quite good in the sand. So it'll be interesting to see what happened there. But very, very impressive Renault at the weekend there. Thought the first moto very, very good.
And you mentioned him there, Thibaut Benistant, a wee bit like Guadagnini, the two MX2 guys from last year, the MX2 rookies. They seem to ride better when they're out front, bizarrely, than they do if they start sort of in 10th or 5th. The pace and the intensity of those battles, they don't seem quite as comfortable. They maybe tighten up a wee bit with how frantic the pace is there. But if they get out in front, they get a gap, they seem to be able to relax. Even if somebody's behind them pressuring them, which you would think would be pretty stressful, it doesn't seem to bother them. Benistant got out front, rode a great race. It was Renault. Renault said he was hoping Benistant would make the mistake, but admitted he was the one that actually made the mistake in the second race. And Benistant, another moto win, his first podium of the season. And this guy, while he might be out of the hunt for the championship, more or less, I think he's going to be a race win threat for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, that weekend will probably stay with him forever. First career MX2 podium, and with a 9-1. Very, very strange scorecard. But yeah, in the first row, he just didn't have flow, didn't feel good for whatever reason. But goes to show if he gets a whole shot, he has the pace to win. Probably with MX2 being so deep this year, you could probably say that about quite a lot of riders. But for him being a rookie, it's extra impressive. And a good start to his MX2 career, 7th in the championship, got on the podium, and he's got 2 moto wins now. I think he would have took that coming into the season. He just needs to improve a little bit in the consistency side, and once he does that, he should be a major force in this class.
Yeah, I really like watching him ride. He's a great style, and I think the exciting thing about all the MX2 riders, including Kai de Wolf, who was very good in the first moto, on a track that, once again, you wouldn't say would be a strength, but he's carrying a lot of confidence. None of them are intimidated. They all believe they're good enough to win races and challenge whoever is in front of them, no matter how much experience they have. So the three of them have definitely been a very exciting addition to this World Championship. And the MX2 class for me is maybe the deepest it's been in a long, long time. It's always good, but I think this year it's went to another level in terms of depth of speed. That first moto, it was just a constant battle of really good riders coming through, and with it being hard to pass, you kind of felt sorry for the guys that didn't get away, because there wasn't how are you going to get up into the top 5 if you start 15th and you're battling quality in 13th and 14th. It's not an easy class this year.
Absolutely, it's very, very deep this year, and it's really good to see that, as you mentioned, the MX250 riders have been a really good addition. And I think we also need to take that class a lot more seriously too. Maybe it doesn't get the credit it deserves, but the 3 riders that have stepped up this year have certainly shown how quick they were going last year. They've all obviously got better equipment in MX2, but it still goes to show, and it'll be interesting to see who makes a step up from the MX250 at the end of this year to move up the MX2. And only Jet Beaton and Buzz Ramy are the 2 that's going to move up the MXGP next year, so it should still be pretty deep in 2022 as well, which is great.
But Swami, I thought he would have been a bit better, to be honest. 4th overall looks maybe better than his speed and his starts were. I thought he'd be really challenging for a podium, if not a race win. What were your thoughts on him?
Well, yeah, but he crashed in free practice and was riding in pain. So I have to say, yeah, I was disappointed with the first moto, only finishing 11th. But then you look who was behind him. He held off Jago Gertz to finish 11th. So it just shows what we're saying, how tough this class is this year. Felt like the second moto, it was a lot better. Maybe he had a bit more extra adrenaline or whatever through the pain. But 6th under the circumstances was good, I thought. But Yeah, of course, if he was fully fit, you would say ninth isn't what he's looking for, but to stay fourth in the championship was good damage control, I thought. But he's going to have to probably do a bit more in the next 2 rounds of it being sand, and especially at Lommel. That could be a tough one for Basrami. It'll be interesting to see.
Ninth overall, I think I said fourth. He's fourth in the championship, but ninth overall on the day. Ruben Fernandez, I thought he rode well. He fought hard both motos. He was aggressive, trying to keep people behind him. He was aggressive, trying to make passes. Just what you like to see out of Ruben Fernandez. He's kept his championship hopes. I think he's 14 off, fifth overall. A good day. Maybe he wanted a wee bit more, but it certainly wasn't a bad day for Ruben Fernandez. He's proven that he's going to be there consistently each round by the looks of things. And I don't think he can be too unhappy with his performance at Loket.
Yeah, well, this is it. Livia Lancula at the 114 Motorsport team has had Hunter Lawrence. She's had Mitch Evans. And whilst they have been fast, consistency has been the issue. And so far this year, Ruben Fernandez, in terms of consistency, ticks the box. And, he can battle for podiums as he showed at the start of the season. So to finish fifth overall, to stay in contention for the championship, I think he'll maybe be a wee bit disappointed with the second moto dropping back to seventh. But overall, I mean, if you had told him it'd be 14 points off the red plate coming into the season after 5 rounds and being third, I think he'd have snapped your hand off after finishing, I think it was 9th or 10th last year. So big improvement. And if he can keep being a consistent top 5 rider, I think Livia Lanceville will be very, very happy with him.
And Jed Beaton, fourth overall, another good day for the Aussie. He's really starting to come into his own now and get the results I think everyone expected. Great performance in the first moto, and he's looking really comfortable on the bike. How he'll do in Lommel remains to be seen. It can't be too easy for him, although he has lived in Europe for a while now and have plenty of practice in the sand. But Jed Beaton, really nice to see him hitting his form now in fourth overall.
Yeah, exactly. After a tough start to the season, the performance at Oz was well needed, and you could say a bit of a surprise considering sand isn't his forte. So that's really seemed to give him the kick up the arse maybe he needed, and it was good to see him, keep the good level of riding up at Loket and go fourth overall. Probably knowing Jed would probably be disappointed to miss the podium, but he's got himself back into sixth in the championship, and after a tough start to the season for his standards, he'll be happy that he's turning things around. Jago
Gertz had a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde day. First moto, 12th, just not what you expect from Jago. Yes, he got a bad start, and yes, it's very difficult to pass, but you would have thought or hoped at least he could have got himself into the lower reaches of the top 10, sort of even 6th to 10th wouldn't have been too bad. But at 12th place, Jago said he got arm pump in the first moto and just couldn't move forward. Second moto though, it was a different guy, no arm pump, not a great start, but he rode really well to come through to third. And watching Jago whenever he's on that form, the way he's wheeling over things and jumping over things with his style, he looked really smooth but efficient and flowing on the bike. He was really nice to watch that second moto. And I think that's everyone's fear maybe of the championship leaders. If Jago can find that form but get his starts consistent, and with Lommel coming next, he could be hard to beat, but he can't keep having these off moves at 12th place with arm pump, and the first one isn't going to cut it if he wants to be world champion this year. But his talent, his speed and his style, everything he did in the second moto, apart from the start, was vintage Jago Gertz, and he was a joy to watch.
Yeah, I have to say, after the first moto, I was scratching my head a little bit. After going pole, which Jago doesn't necessarily do. He's not known for his balls out speed. And, he usually takes a top 5 in qualifying. He's usually happy enough for that. So for him to go pole, then only finish 12th in the first moto, I know he got a bad start, but Maxime Renault was behind him and he managed to get up to 5th. So at least he had a reason, and it was arm pump. If there was no reason for that, you'd be worried. But at least, that's an explanation, at least. And then in the second moto, yeah, that was the Jago Gertz we all know. And, that was it. It was nice to see him ride like that again. And 12th, third for 6th overall after the injury at the start of the year to get himself into 5th position. He's slowly coming, 33 points off. San can be a bit of a game changer. After Latvia, it'll be interesting to see what the points gap is. I still think Jago can win this title. For me, it's going to probably come down between Gert or Renault. Guadagnini won't be far away, but I think he might lose a bit too much points in the sand, and he's not even expected to win the title anyway, so it's not a disaster for him if he doesn't. For me, it's between Renault or Gertz at the moment.
Gertz is 33 points back, I think, at the minute, so he's close, but he'll want to be a bit closer, and I think Lommel and Latvia are the rounds where he's going to want to make big headway in the championship chase. So big 2 rounds for Jago Gertz coming up.
Yeah, big 2 rounds, and these 2 sand races come at the perfect time for him as well. He'll be looking to cut into this points gap, and if he can get it down to 20, he's not far off. So, and we all know, last year Vial and Gertz showed just how fast they are when they're 100%. So, you can't rule them out just yet.
Wilson Todd, top 10 overall again. Really good ride in the first moto for 7th place. He was riding a stock bike with a pipe at the start of the season, but his start was really good in the first moto. I'm wondering if he's had a few extra parts added to that Dixon Kawasaki. He's riding really, really well at the minute. 12th overall in the championship after 2 top 10 rounds in a row. Very, very pleased with Wilson Todd's level of sustained consistency at the minute.
Yeah, very, very impressive. He's had a very good 2 weeks. Really, really good. In that first moto, he got just with the doctor order a good start, which you need in MX2. The F&H Kawasaki guys need to look and have a look at what Dixon's doing, because they need to get their riders out of the gate. It makes life a lot easier, and if you can do that and plug away. Wilson Todd at the start, wasn't quite at the races at the start. He was holding guys up, but actually he adapted the speed and the track the longer it went on, and he started to look really good, and to come home in 7th was very, very impressive, especially at that rough track, and to back that up with a solid 11th, 10th overall, 12th in the championship. Really, really good start to the season for Wilson Todd, and he'll start to believe he belongs battling with those riders at the front now. Yeah,
I think the Aussies are known for their confidence anyway. There's one thing Wilson Todd isn't, and that's he isn't intimidated, and with each result and the more he's getting starts to get up there, it's going to show him the pace. And I don't think if he can keep the good starts up, it's going to be long before he's knocking on the door of the top 5. You mentioned the F&H Kawasaki team there. Rowan van de Moosdijk has scored 13 points in the last 3 motos. Absolute disaster for him, just when it looked like he was ready to contend for this title. When he needed to step up and get points, bad luck with the mechanical, and then I think it was a crash later on the second moto. Things have just, the bottom's fallen out for Rowan van de Moosdijk in the last 3 motos.
Yeah, absolutely. And, his championship position absolutely does not reflect his speed, so it's going to be very, very frustrating. He shouldn't be that far off the title chase, but the mechanical you can't do much about. And then in that second moto at Loket, he probably maybe should have just settled for where he was. It's better that than a big crash. I think he had a nasty crash, so we'll have to see if he's okay to ride Lommel. I know he was going to see the doctor today, so we should find out soon. But it'll be a big blow if he has to miss Lommel after winning a moto there last year.
Yeah, 9th place in the championship. He was in the top 5 previously, 3 motos ago, right on the cusp of challenging for a top 3 and for a world championship title. Mentally, even if he's physically okay after that crash, he's got to be very, very frustrated.
Yeah, but the main problem is starts. The guy always gets good time practices, and he just cannot buy a good start usually. I don't know if it's him, if it's the bike, but they're never going to win a title starting outside the top 10 every moto. So that's the underlying problem that they need to fix. If they can get that sorted out and position himself better from the opening laps, it'll make life a lot easier.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating to see, because he has the talent, he has the speed, and when things like this happen, you just feel for a rider in his position where it's kind of his time to shine. At the moment, everything's unraveling, and it can't be easy for him. So hopefully his health is okay, and we can start to see maybe the pressure of the championship will be released from him now. And as you say, if he can start getting out of the gate, he can start to ride free, and he can just start to show his speed and just go for individual race results now maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. The start's definitely crucial with Rowan. I felt like he actually rode really good at Loket because the starts weren't good, and usually he's not the most aggressive rider in the world, but he was actually making aggressive passes. So for that aspect, I was pleased with him at Loket. But yeah, just the second moto crash ruined it, and the bad starts ruined it. They're the bits he needs to fix really, because he does have the speed and the talent. So hopefully he can figure it all out and turn himself into a consistent podium guy at least.
Yeah, Conrad Muse moving on to the British rider Terrible first moto DNF. It looked like it was going to continue his bad run in the GPs, but he turned it around big time. The second moto to get a 10th place, rode really well, decent start, kept the pace, and back into the top 10 for Conrad Muse, and he's Lommel coming up. So hopefully he can get 2 good starts there and really show us what he's made of. But it's nice to see Muse back into the top 10.
Yeah, well, it's progress. It's nice to see him in the top 10. Feel like his riding still isn't vintage Conrad Muse, we all know, but it's a starting point, and especially after a DNF for the first moto, it was an awful start to the day, but the rebound and get a 10th, 15th overall isn't what they're there to do, but progress and Lommel is a track that he knows really well, so who knows, maybe two top 10s there, and then build from that would be perfect, I would say.
Anyone else you want to give a mention to in MX2 this weekend?
I would say Rennie Hoffer. He seems to be having one good moto and one bad moto. If he can fix the one, well, it's not one bad moto, it's one average moto. But if he can fix that and get 2 good motos, he'll be knocking on the door. 7th overall, not too bad, but it was the 4th and the second moto where I felt he rode really well. If he can ride like that going into the rest of the season, he has the talent to be a consistent top 5 guy.
Right, moving on to America and Millville. Chase Sexton took his first overall win of the season, and then he mentioned in the press conference that he's definitely up for racing the Motocross of Nations for Team USA, and he wants to race the MXGP riders. Chase Sexton, he has pace. He's probably been a wee bit disappointing at certain times in the outdoors this year. Started strong, fell away a bit, but I think this weekend was more of what you were expecting, Chase Sexton coming into the season. And if he rides like that, he'll be a great asset to Team USA, I believe, at Mantova. If he's selected, of course.
Before Washougal, I feel like Chase Sexton was definitely the best guy not to win so far this season. So it's nice for him to finally show his true potential. 1-3 to clinch his first overall of the year. He'll be hoping for more success like that now as the season heads into the last 6 rounds. I feel like he would be a very good pick for America. If I was picking the team, I would probably select him. He's also got a nice style, and I feel like I could help him at a GP kind of track. So it'd be interesting to see how he would perform at Mantova and against the MXGP guys.
Yeah, there's talk Kawasaki won't send any riders with Roger DeCoster's team manager. Eli Tomac is moving to Yamaha anyway, so I wouldn't necessarily expect him to be putting his hand up to go either way. Justin Barcia on the gas, he's only 10 points behind Eli in the championship. He's 4th. Obviously, with the Roger DeCoster connection and the KTM connection with gas, you would imagine he would be one of the top contenders to go along with Sexton. So the 4th and 5th in their championship, but they are the 2nd and 3rd best Americans, and they're all within 11 points of Eli Tomac anyway. So any 2 of those 3, you could probably include Aaron Plessinger, who had a DNF in the championship. If you give him another 20 points, he'd be in that mix as well. So even if you discount Tomac, the other 3 guys who probably you would imagine be one of 2 of those 3 would get chosen for the 450 division, probably more or less on the same level as Tomac this year, bar the odd turbo Tomac moto. But Barcia, say for example, Barcia Sexton, and if they put an RJ Hamster level guy in MX2, they're going to be a strong team. But it'd be something cool to see Sexton racing outside of America. I think he does have good speed. He's used to chasing Roxon around the test track, I'm sure. He's obviously a former GP rider. He's been racing Dylan Ferrandis, so he's going to have familiarity with some of the former GP riders, and it'll be interesting to see how his pace goes against a Tim Gasjer, who'll actually be his Honda teammate there. They actually have quite similar styles. So if he does go to the destinations, it's going to bring a wee bit of extra excitement. A rider you don't often get to see outside America, and his first experience. So definitely it could be an exciting thing for Team USA, and they're probably going to have a good team.
Yeah, as you said there, it doesn't sound like Kawasaki are going to send a rider, and it sounds like Star Yamaha aren't going to send any riders either. So, as you said, the 450 American team pretty much picks itself due to those circumstances, with Chase Sexton and Justin Barcia as the 450 riders anyway. And yeah, it's a strong lineup. Sexton, I feel like his style's really smooth. He's probably got more of a GP style than an American style, where the typical American style is kind of just pin it, whereas he's very technically he's a good rider. He's smooth. He's really good to watch. So he'll be a good pick, I think. Then you've got Barsha, he's got more of an American style, but he
He's
rode
not
actually
smooth.
pretty well at Lommel. So
Yeah.
and he's very flat out and pin it to win it. But he actually rode really well at Lommel. So those two should be a good pick. And then it's just on the 250 guy. If it's going to be an MX2 GP, it'll be interesting to see if they keep the under 23 age rule. If they do, that'll rule RJ Hampshire out. So Michael Mosiman probably get the pick, and he's gas, so it keeps that connection.
Yeah, his championship position isn't ideal, but his speed is actually very good. He's without doubt a top 5 podium level rider. So America, with 300 million people to choose from, they're always going to be strong. Looks like they're going to be strong again, looking at the options they have. Back to Washougal and Ken Roxon, you had to feel a bit sorry for Ken. He's dealing with illness. He didn't look himself out there, faded, something we haven't seen in a long time. We're maybe wondering if this was what was going to happen to him consistently outdoors this season, but it hasn't, and he's been aggressive. He's fought hard to the end of each race, even whether it's Ferrandis or whoever setting the pace. Roxon's never really given in this time. It didn't look like he had much choice. He was just trying to get points, but it's really put him behind Ferrandis in the championship now. Nearly 50 points back. Ken Roxon's championship hopes took a big dive at Washougal.
Yeah, I was wondering what was wrong with him. I thought maybe it was the impact from the crash last week, even though I know he raced his second moto and won, but sometimes the pain doesn't hit you till later in the week. So I thought maybe it could have had something to do with that, but then it was revealed he was just sick. So a very unfortunate time to get sick, and it's given Dylan Ferrandis a big points gap now with 47. So Roxon might have a fight to keep second now, but fingers crossed he's feeling better at the next round, and I think it's 2 weeks' time. So hopefully he can ride like we all know he can there and battle for the win, because he's, in my opinion, him and Dylan and Eli are the fastest 3 there.
Dylan was very, very impressive in the second moto. Didn't have to hold Eli Tomac off, but did it anyway. He said he was actually trying to conserve some energy. Looked around, seen it was Eli, and then that was the exact reason he had to conserve that energy, because when it came to the last couple of laps, he upped his pace, Tomac upped his pace, and Tomac couldn't get away by. Ferrandis played it perfect. That extra energy he kept in reserve for the rest of the moto. He used to full effect on the last 2 laps, and a brilliant win for Dylan Ferrandis. He wants to win this championship, beating everyone straight up, and he just gave Eli Tomac no inch, no quarter. And Tomac, I think, was probably pretty frustrated, because when he's in that mood, usually he wins, but he wasn't able to get it done against the Frenchman, who didn't even need to beat him for the championship.
Yep, never end out. I knew Dylan had that second moto under control. I know Eli pushed really, really hard in the penultimate lap and got close to him then on the last lap, but it always felt like Dylan had that little bit extra if he needed it, and he proved that in the last lap, setting his fastest lap time. So that's very typical of Dylan. At the start of the motos, he's maybe not at his best, but as the tracks get rougher and he's got the fitness side covered, so he always seems to be at his best the second half of the race. So I wasn't surprised to see him hold off Eli, although Eli's charge was very impressive to get this back wheel, admittedly. But it was a very good battle and a good race to watch between them, both of them going at it. Yeah,
and it looks now that it's just a matter of managing no big mistakes from Dylan Ferrandis for the rest of this championship, but he should win the title. He's been very, very good. His bad motos have never been that bad. He's always been able to make the best of a bad situation, and he's always been able to win when the opportunities presented itself. So Dylan Ferrandis, definitely the best guy over in America at the minute. Moving to MX or 250 motocross, and Jeremy Martin took an unlikely overall win after Justin Cooper had a big crash going up the big uphill at Washougal. Very lucky not to be injured, but my goodness, he must have a lot of regret whenever he woke up the next morning, because he gave away a lot of points. He's only extended his lead by a couple of points. He should have extended it by, I think, 15, 17 points. And that maybe would have given him one hand on the championship with Jet's bad starts. Jet, I have to say, he's been getting bad starts. Justin's been getting good starts, and he's been almost getting away with not losing too much in the points. It looked like Washougal, his luck was going to run out on that. But then with 2 laps to go, he ended up getting second, and it was Justin Cooper in second who had the big crash, gave the position and gave a lot of points back to Jet Lawrence, who's still very much now in this championship, and it looked like he was going to lose a lot of points. big turnaround, 2 laps in America in the 250 class.
Yeah, I'm just on Jeremy Martin. He had to wait to the 6th round to win his first overall of the year, and now a week later he's won his 2nd overall of the season, and he's the only guy to win more than 1 overall. So it goes to show how quick some things can change. Determined wee bugger to go 3-1 for the overall. Very impressive again from Jeremy Martin. And yeah, just on the battle for the championship. Justin Cooper, he did throw that away. You know, he should have just settled for the 2nd, and it would have been hunky-dory for the championship. But, you know, he's actually very fortunate to be able to get up from that crash and to finish 8th and get points, because that was a very high-speed section of the track. And he was very lucky not to go right into the middle of the crowd as well. That could have ended a lot worse. So he's very fortunate to be able to pick the bike up and get home for 8th and get points. And yeah, Jet starts not going to win the championship starting like that. And also at Washougal and Millville track hasn't got overly too rough. And when you get bad starts, it makes it harder to come through the pack because it's easier to go faster. If the tracks are a wee bit rougher, I think it would help Jet with his bad starts, but difficult. He needs to get those dialed in, and if he can get the starts, we all know he has the speed, but considering the bad starts only to be 8 points down, I think he'll probably take that now, because it was looking a lot worse up until that crash from Justin.
And Jeremy Martin, as I said, took an unlikely overall win, but he was fast on a track that he admits isn't usually the easiest for him due to his aggressive style. Doesn't always work well on a slick track. He's 61 points back. There's 5 rounds to go. Has he got an outside shot at this championship?
No, not for me. I think he's done really well after a tough start to the season to get into 4th. I don't think he's got enough to win the championship. No, I think it would need another disaster from Justin Cooper and Jet for something seriously to go wrong as well. He would need to really do something amazing to pull the championship off, I feel. He'd need to go near 1-1 for most of the rounds, I feel like.
Well, he won 2 of the first 3. Then he didn't score any points for the next 4. And he's won 3 of the last 4 motos. So if you're saying he needs to win every moto whenever he's been healthy, he pretty much has been winning every moto, and he's getting the starts. So it might not be, it's not likely, but I don't think you can totally rule him out until we see how he goes in Udall. Obviously, he's no margin for error, and he needs the other guys to have some errors. But Martin, I think he'll think he still has an outside shot, and he'll just be going for win after win. He's not one to really like his teammates much anyway, so I don't think he'll be caring about Justin Cooper much, and he'll probably just annoys him that Justin Cooper's winning when he'll feel it should be him. So I think Jeremy Martin's gonna give it everything he has, especially the next 2 rounds, to see if he can force the other 2 into mistakes, because once he gets it within 40 or 50, it's within obviously a day's racing in terms of points. And he isn't, as you say, he's a tough bugger, and he won't be given in too easily if he can get his teeth into this championship battle a wee bit more.
Yeah, well, he'll absolutely still think he's in with a shot of the title. You have to think like that as an athlete, and especially a successful one. So obviously he'll still be going for it and saying it and seeing how much he can claw back. But yeah, I think realistically it's going to be very, very tough. But as you said, it's not completely impossible. 2
rounds ago, Hunter Lawrence was 26 points off the championship. Now he's only 17 points ahead of Jeremy Martin. It's been a tough series of motos for Hunter, and that crash in the 2nd moto at Washougal has really dented his hopes. Third overall, still a good season for him, but he'll have been hoping for a lot more after that double win at Southwick. It just hasn't went his way again. Like Jet starts, though Jet did get a start there in Washougal, but Hunter, he's got to be frustrated. He created a great platform for himself after Southwick, and he just hasn't been able to really get up front completely. He's been sort of that mid top 10 range ever since.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's the same with Jet. I just feel like the tracks haven't got rough enough this last 2 weeks for those 2 guys to really, really excel. But it's still no excuse. You need to perform in every conditions. But so he'll be disappointed with his 7th overall. But still being 3rd in the championship isn't too bad. And if he can, but he's got a fight in his hand to hold off Martin now as the season progresses. But hopefully he can ride like he can at Southwick again at the next few rounds, and maybe even try and look ahead instead of behind him in the championship.
Pierce Brown 5th overall on the gas with after his incident with Jet Lawrence running into him in the previous round. Great 5th overall for Brown. He always threatens to show a lot of pace. He'll have a good moto here, a good moto there, and then he'll disappear for a bit. So it's nice to see him get results on the board. Michael Moser went sixth, so good day for Gas, two 250 guys in the top six. Dylan Swartz on the Suzuki, eighth overall. I think he's had a phenomenal season, a brilliant sixth in the second moto on a track where you'd think where power would be pretty essential. He's on a privateer Suzuki. He's got to be a guy the teams are looking to pick up. And if an MX2 team's looking for an upcoming GP rider, Swartz mightn't be a bad guy to give a call to. He's riding really well this year.
Yeah, Dylan Swartz has been very, very impressive. 13th in the first moto, but the 6th in Moto 2 is where he really excelled. Really, really good, and 8th overall on a Suzuki, which is known to be the best bike and a privateer effort too. So yeah, he has to be happy with that, and if he can build on that and keep getting top 10 overalls, that would be a good season for him. And on Brown and Mosiman, yeah, good day for Gas going 5th and 6th. Brown does struggle with his consistency, so to have two good motos, 6-4, he'll want more of that as the season goes. And same with Mosiman, really, although he doesn't usually struggle with his consistency, but for whatever reason, he didn't have a great start to the season, but he's starting to ride like we know how he can now. So 6th overall, and he's up into 8th in the championship now, so he's going the right direction.
That's it, yeah. He's definitely one to keep an eye on to see if he can up the consistency on the speed in the last few rounds. But I think that's everything covered, Andy. Thank you for another session of podcast race reviews, and we'll be back next week. No American race next week. We do, though, have Lommel, one of the toughest GPs on the calendar, so we're looking forward to that, and we'll do a review again next week and put that out there for everyone to listen to. So please like and subscribe, follow if you can. Andy, thank you. We'll speak to you again soon.
Yes, all the best. Thanks, guys.